What is up guys, Morton here from SteamFirst.com with a review for the indie arcade racer Rage Runner, developed by Hypercane Studios and released May 16th, 2014 on Steam for $5. Rage Runner is an incredibly fast-paced racing game, but you don't race against other people, you just try to finish the levels as fast as possible. If you're trying to actually get high scores, it's going to take a lot of patience, practice, and lightning-fast reflexes. The gameplay is pretty basic, but there are some power-ups you can grab, and you'll need them to get through most of the levels. And it does require some thought, because the power-up you get just allows you to use one of many abilities. So you need to choose between using the power-up as a missile, a massive speed boost, a shield, or a super brake that stops you completely and allows you to dodge obstacles at the last minute. Most of the obstacles are just walls that you need to avoid flying into, although there are some things that move around as well. But because of how fast you're going, it can be hard to react in time. In fact, in a lot of places, it's basically impossible to react fast enough if you don't know what's coming ahead of time. So it basically turns into go as far as possible, then you'll crash, then next time you'll know where the obstacle is, and you can get past it, but crash into something else. So it kind of becomes a memory game almost, where you have to just keep trying until you know how you have to move for each obstacle to position yourself well for the next one. As for the levels themselves, there are only 9 created by the developers, everything else is created by the community. And that's great in theory, but we all know how community creations tend to go. There will be a few fun levels, but there will be a lot of pointless and impossible levels. At least, that's what I'm assuming. I wouldn't know because every time I tried to play on the community levels, it would get stuck loading for 20 or more minutes, and I kind of just gave up because I'm not going to sit here waiting for an hour just to load these levels. As for the 9 actual levels, they're pretty fun, but they're all kind of similar. Basically, every obstacle is just avoiding things or blowing them up with missiles, but there's still a decent amount of variety. On some stages you'll need to boost through almost the entire thing to finish within the time limit, and on other stages you won't be boosting at all really, and it's just going to be about positioning. Overall, the gameplay isn't bad, there's just not all that much there, and it isn't very deep. It's just a lot of trial and error, continuing to crash until you memorize the entire course, but choosing when to use which of your abilities does make things interesting and add more of a challenge. Gameplay gets a 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty fun for a while, but it does get repetitive, and with only 9 courses available outside of community-made levels, which don't even always work apparently, there's just not all that much there. Visually, the game is kind of bland and repetitive. Everything looks pretty good, but every single level looks exactly the same almost, and the only difference between them is where the obstacles are put in the long corridor you're flying down. The ship you pilot and the power-ups you collect and everything look good though. It just would have been nice if the levels had some kind of different walls or backgrounds or something to make things more interesting. Graphics get a 3 out of 5. Everything looks fairly good, it's just not varied and gets boring to look at after a while. The audio is pretty good, in fact it might be the best part of the game. Each of the 9 levels have their own songs and they fit the overall theme of the level. If it's a level where you're going to be using thrusters non-stop and going incredibly fast, the song is also fast-paced. If it's a slower level, the song is more mellow, and it works really well. The only downside is the song begins when you start the level and ends when you finish it or when you crash. And since you crash a lot, you'll probably hear the first 10 to 30 seconds of the song about 20 times in 5 minutes. But the music is really good and it fits perfectly with each stage. Along with the music being good, the sound effects are as well. Picking up power-ups has this nice sound that goes along with it, and crashing sounds like how you'd expect it to. Sound gets a 4.5 out of 5. Even though the songs are short, the fact that they coincide with the level and how the level plays is an awesome touch. As for replayability, there's a fair amount when you consider that each level has a timer and a score for you to compete on the high scoreboards with, and on top of that there's user-made content for you to play, if you can get it to work. However, if you aren't interested in competing for the fastest times, you may quickly get bored, especially because community-created levels are going to either be great or terrible. That's the problem with relying on user-created content, especially when it can either make or break your game. As I said, I wasn't even able to look at the list of levels other people made, so if that's your main source of replayability, that's kind of a problem. But aside from that, there are quite a lot of achievements, and most of them are actually pretty hard, but they basically just require you to play the same levels over and over. Replayability gets a 3 out of 5. There's definitely stuff to do, but it's all mostly just playing the same 9 levels repeatedly, trying to get achievements or trying to complete them faster. Rage Runner isn't bad, it's just really nothing amazing. The gameplay works, but it gets repetitive because of how similar the levels are. The game looks nice, but there's little to no variety, and even though the audio is amazing, sound alone can't save a game. Again, I couldn't get the community-made levels to ever work. I don't know if that was something on my end somehow, or something wrong with the game itself, but the fact that there's a problem at all is a pretty bad sign. Overall, Rage Runner gets a 3.5 out of 5. It's fun for a while, but with only 9 levels it won't last for all that long. But it's only $5. If you're a fan of the arcade racing genre, it's worth looking into.